COVID. Hare Krishna. A warm welcome to all of you in our session today, which is titled Coexisting with COVID. As we all are aware, it's been almost more than a year since we all are battling, you know, just being with this virus. Almost, I think from March 2020 is when we are actually experiencing this, COVID situation, which has resulted in lockdown, isolation, innumerable, casualties across the world, intense pain and suffering to humanity. And presently, India is actually experiencing a deadly second wave, which is taking a toll on individuals and also with the healthcare system struggling to cope with the situation. And to help our devotee community worldwide and especially in India to become more aware of, and not just aware but also to become more informed about the concerns and questions in relation to COVID, we have with us today Dr. Dwarkadhish Prabhu. A warm welcome to you, Dwarkadhish Prabhu, on behalf of myself and the strategy planning team. Hare Krishna. Dwarkadhish Prabhu is a medical doctor. He's a postgraduate in medicine from the Bombay University based in Mumbai. And he is also the founding member, a trustee, and the head of the department at the Bhaktivedanta hospital situated in Mira Rd. Besides being a very good doctor, he is also known to be a very good devotee who actually renders exceptional care and compassion to patients when he treats them. And he also travels across the world. And at the present time, he was actually offering medical assistance to devotees and different yatras and communities across the world. So it's a great pleasure to have you, Prabhu, here to just get more informed and to educate ourselves on questions related to COVID. So we just want to actually recall some time back, we had a session back, we had a session with Dr. Nathan from Bhaktivedanta Hospital, and we actually shared concerns about vaccination, overview of the situation, and how to deal with it. So, here we have with us Dwarkadhish Prabhu, who is going to actually take this session forward from where we started with Madhvanand Prabhu. And this is going to be a lot more question and answer session where we're actually going to address a lot of questions related to COVID, home quarantine, vaccines, and physical and mental care. So, a warm welcome to you, Prabhu. And I would just like to hand over our session to you, and you can just briefly, I think, just share with us something about COVID. I think he is hung and probably there's a technical issue. Just sorry for you all, just please bear with us. This is the digital world, and that's how there are always these technical glitches. I think he and his team are trying to connect. We'll just try to reach to him. Yes, Prabhuji, here you are. Okay. So, yeah, over to you.
Yes. Thank you, Parijat, for having me today here in this very special event. The SPT, Study Planning Team of Prabhupada, definitely carries his grace, and this program I can see is basically sharing our concerns with Srila Prabhupada's family. We are all together here. Some of us are in India, some of you are overseas in different parts of the world, and I thank you all for being here. And this program must be definitely being blessed by Prabhupada, because when we look at Prabhupada's personality and the way he wrote his letters to all of us, thousands of letters which he has given His last line was always, hope this meets you in good health, right? So Prabhupada was a transcendentalist, but he was very practical man, and health concern of his devotees was always something which he kept as a priority in his consciousness. I remember reading years ago about one line from Prabhupada in the first canto, where Prabhupada says that to remain healthy and to serve Krishna is the motto of our life. And I like that statement because I was a doctor, so it really automatically touched me that Prabhupada is very clear that we maintain health not for enjoying health, but we maintain good health so that we can serve the very purpose of our life, which is to become Krishna conscious. So with that, just a few minutes back before coming to this program, I happened to just go through a small video which was by Pankajangari Prabhu, our beloved, worshipable, saintly Vaishnav whom we lost. And he was speaking on Corona pandemic and the reasons why this happens in the world. And he was sharing words of wisdom. And he was saying that how we have we have made this world into our home. I mean, even though it's actually the prison house, and therefore we are conditioned to stay here. But in prison houses, things will not remain so nice and comfortable because a lot of people who are misbehaving. So people like you and me and the devotee worldwide are not misbehaving. We are trying to be good children of Krishna, trying to live our lives in a pious way, Krishna conscious way. But there are people who are, doing a lot of wrong things in this world. And he was highlighting the fact that yes, pandemic, we have lost a lot of people. But if I just imagine the number of people we have been killing in the womb and the number of animals we kill per day, that per day figure far exceeds what we have lost in the last 18 months. So he was speaking very powerfully, and I would see that he's making us understand that yes, as long as people misbehave, there will be problems in this world. So this program and what we're trying to do in ISKCON is to be not part of the problem, but today we're trying to be part of the solution. So I thank Parijat for having me here, and let's hope that this program may be actually be able to help devotees worldwide and leading a more peaceful and happy life so that they can execute the Krishna consciousness nicely.
That was so well said, Roji. Especially, I think we need to especially take care, though it is our bodies, but they are instruments to serve Krishna, and devotees' bodies are so precious. This lifetime is so precious, and we have lost, some stalwarts into our movement, and we want to safeguard whatever we have now in our devotee community. And this is one of the reasons actually why we are having this session, so that we make our devotees much more, aware, share information, so that we don't think that taking care of my body is Maya, but we can actually empower them with correct information, especially coming from devotees like yourself, who are experienced medical practitioners and who have actually probably seen hundreds of devotees in the last 1 year, patients from all walks of life in relation to COVID. So I would actually like to start with, even before we come to the point of having COVID, one of the reasons we are so worried is because we want to safeguard our, and a lot of the safeguarding of ourselves in relation to COVID has been centered around building our immunity. There has been so much talk, information, and sharing of resources in relation to how to build our immunity. So I would really like you to little bit unpack this for us, that, what is actually the immune system, and what do we mean by, when we say that we are building our immunity against this virus. So if you can just little bit, tell us and share with us about that.
Well, immunity is nature's, Krishna's inbuilt system within all our bodies to, keep us away. We are living in an ocean of germs and organisms, parasites, fungi, viruses, and bacteria, millions of, jivatmas in different species, and potentially the body can be attacked. So this is actually the inbuilt defense system. So number one, keep the unwanted bacteria and viruses and parasites and all these vectors away. And number two, if they at all come into our bodies and the body sees them, and the second thing is the body identifies, the immune system identifies, this is foreign, this is unwanted, this is dangerous for the body. That intelligence the immune system has got. So this has to go out. this has to be killed, this has to be thrown out, right? That's the second thing, identification. And third is to actually, through cells called, immune cells, they are called specifically T cells, macrophages, through antibodies, which are produced by another group of lymphocytes. They are actually able to create situations whereby this foreign entity, which is like a terrorist attacking this sacred body, have to be actually eliminated. So these three functions of protection, identification, and elimination of unwanted stuff, right? That's what the immune system is all about. And we have various types of immunity. We are born with innate immunity, all of us, right? That happens through our birth, and that's given to us the fact that we are born in human bodies. Then we have passive immunity, which comes to us through our mother, through the placenta and through the breast milk, which we take, at the time of birth. But what happens throughout life is the adaptive immunity, and that's where the corona stuff is, making us difficult because we were not exposed. This is an animal origin virus, correct? This it's called a zoonotic disease. It came from animals, right? Animals and birds. So we do not have inbuilt system the body has not experienced this before. So we don't have innate system to identify this virus. So we are heavily depending on creating again adaptive system immunity whereby we can deal with this virus properly. And because we don't have it, therefore so much of suffering has taken place. So these are the different levels of immunity which we have. So now we're using vaccines and medicines, and we're using food and vessels to how to reactivate our immune system, the adaptive and the innate, whereby we can effectively deal with this very dangerous virus.
Uh, Thank you for that. Just giving us a little bit of a medical understanding on that. So, how can one actually protect what you already have in relation to if you have a good immune system, and if you don't have a strong immune system, how do you boost your immune system?
It is it's a process in itself, and then I want to make it very clear that it is not just vitamin C or zinc or vitamin D alone. It's not like one magic pill which will then pop up in good amounts, or ashwagandha or giloy, etc. People know these things by now. So it's not that when I pop a good amount of that my immune system will come out. It's actually talking about a holistic lifestyle. Unless we lead a proper holistic lifestyle, the holistic lifestyle itself, as a net result of that, creates the immune power of our body. And that may start with first being more regulated in the time you take rest, adequate sleep of 7 to 8 hours, number one. Number two, performing adequate amount of exercises regularly, because most people like us today in modern world are sedentary workers. So exercise actually activates immune system cells when producing more antibodies and T cells in the body. Number three, really eating food which is nutritionally packed. We talk about it later also, I'm sure, about food, but nutritionally packed, rather than, even as devotees, we tend to eat food which is not necessarily nutritious. In the name of prasadam, we may really, eat all sorts of food which are not really nutritious. So third principle is nutrition. Fourth principle is keeping ourselves as far as possible, low stress, because stress really actually burns out our immune system. Too much of stress, abnormal stress, prolonged stress burns out the immune system too badly, right? Because it's like a strain on the immune system. So proper sleep, exercise, food, stress-free life as far as possible, and hydration, right? So if you live all this life, as Krishna says, yogo bhavati dukhaha, this regulation will actually result in a power in the body which we call as the immune system, which can make us effectively deal with the whole situation. So it's basically a lifestyle. It's not a drug. It's not a pill. It's not a herb.
Thank you so much for clarifying that, because I think even a lot of healthcare, naturopathy, and all these different companies are actually taking so much advantage of that. This vitamin, that vitamin, giloy, and I think this perspective which you gave, which is a holistic perspective, that it's overall about regulating your lifestyle.
Yes,
And
regulation.
I this is also probably nature's way to bring that balance, which we are forgetting in today's times. That unfortunately we had a virus to come to tell us this, something which is
Wake
something
up,
so
the wake
basic,
up call. The wake up call.
which yes, which is just expected of us, and our shastras also say that what is most important is we as devotees especially lead a like regulated life. So you mentioned about sleep, and you also spoke about foods, and I think there's a lot of ambiguity in relation to foods. People, as you said, that there's vitamin. Now people are confused. Should I have to take natural vitamin foods? Do I take supplement? Same with the different herbs. So can you a little bit expand on that with relation to what kind of foods you should take and what kind of foods you should try to avoid?
Right. So, from the perspective of, I will speak from the perspective of Corona rather than talking about, from the perspective of just general diet. So, from this perspective, it is important to understand that the coronavirus is so potent. It is the most potent virus in its ability to create what we call in the body inflammatory damage. That word is very, very crucial to understand. The word is inflammation, right? And therefore, foods which we are going to choose will have to be from two categories from this perspective. In our body, we have a pro-inflammatory system and we have an anti-inflammatory system. And a balance of both these systems actually creates a situation whereby anything which is attacking the body creates inflammation in a controlled measure, because inflammation is necessary for taking care of the problem. But if you have an uncontrolled inflammation, that means it is just like going beyond the realm, and it's like breaking the dam which you're supposed to protect, but the dam breaks, then everything gets flooded, right? So then you have like something like an inflammatory cytokine storm. Why? Because we do not have enough anti-inflammatory stuff in our body. Therefore, when we talk of foods, there are foods, deep fried foods, junk foods. Now we're talking to devotees, right? So we're not going to talk of meat and eggs and fish and all that stuff. You're not going to talk about all that. That's considered already forbidden foods. That's out. Right? But we're talking about Vaishnav community who already understand much about diet in the sattvic realm. But even in the sattvic realm, you can do a lot of things wrong. So, for example, deep fried foods, breads and biscuits and bakery products, things which are brought from the mall, from the shops, ready-made food, right? Let's remember that contain a lot of insecticides, lots of pesticides, coloring agents, flavoring agents, stabilizing agents, and whatnot, and all sorts of things just to make it a little more tasty, right? So, all such artificial foods definitely are in the category of pro-inflammatory, right? But when we eat foods which are closer to nature, that means we have a whole fruit, not the packaged fruit juice, like Tropicana or whatever, right? The whole fruit which Krishna gives us, like that, right? Then you eat nuts, you take seeds, right? Then you take salads, you take sprouts, right? Now, when you take this type of foods, right, they are more in the natural state. That means they have the God-given properties of nutrition still undisturbed within them. So consuming a healthy amount of these foods is going to be extremely useful. And avoiding food which are overly cooked, overly spiced, right? Stale, kept in the fridge for a long time. Sometimes we may make a food and we put it in the fridge, even if it is prasadam, taken after 5 days, 7 days, 10 days. Prabhupada says in the Bhagavad Gita, as we know, after 3 hours of food, the food loses its vitality, right? So therefore, for us to understand that fresh food is very, very important. So therefore, eating the seeds, nuts, salads, fruits, especially dark greens are very good because they contain green color is considered as a calming color. And calming color, why is it calming? Because it is anti-inflammatory. So your dark greens contain very rich amount of magnesium, right? Magnesium is very, very important. So it comes from your spinach, it comes from your broccoli, it comes from your kale, parsley, celery, right? These foods are very important. And therefore also, along with dark greens, take good amount of fruits. Since fruit sometimes can be costly, they can be costly, you can take vitamin supplements. Now, since all foods are not nutritionally so good, because nowadays the artificial farming techniques have actually depleted the very food which we eat. So even the same tomato 50 years back and now is different in nutritional content. We already know that, right? So being aware of the fact that we are nutritionally depleted, food we're eating. Therefore, there is some role definitely for supplements to be taken, because then at least you have what you're not getting from your food. So among the supplements, if you ask me, I would probably put vitamin C as first, right? And I think it's already, everyone already knows well about this. About at least 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C per day should be taken. Vitamin D, the sunlight vitamin, very important for immune system, right? 60,000 units per month. I think most people even know that. That is important. Then you have zinc, you know, vitamin A, B complex factors, right? So these are considered as very important supplements which we can take periodically. And there are, of course, other herbs also. People take ashwagandha, people take giloy, things like that, right? There are a whole list of them, right? But let's not forget, as I said, that when we perform exercises and lead a regulated life, then we can assimilate these foods and assimilate the supplements to the maximum capacity of value. If you are not leading a healthy lifestyle, then supplementing the vitamins will probably lead to a wastage, a dumping. It will just gather in your body. It will not be utilized. So supplements and food have to go hand in hand with all that we said earlier. This is a short thing about, in short summary about the foods.
Yeah, I think that was very informative, and I think it's also important that if we decide to take supplements, would you suggest that one should actually consult a doctor? In general, if you choose to take,
There is a amazing explosion of, you know, promotion of various things to take, amazing explosion, right? And since people are so scared these days, they go to the market and go to the medical store and just buy whatever is sold under the guard, under the umbrella of immunity. But when immunity is, it can sell anything in the name of immunity, right? But please remember, these are also, you know, everything has to have a sense of balance. Therefore, I would suggest that rather than become indiscriminative and making the whole thing, you know, taking independent decisions on ourselves, we don't know our prakriti, we don't know our real nature, what to take, and how much to take, how much not to take. Best is you consult some naturopathic doctor, consult some good friend of yours who knows Ayurveda, who knows naturopathy, right? It's always good. Prabhupada taught us to always go under guidance, right? Prabhupada
yeah,
always taught us to go under guidance, especially medical care. You know, we don't know what is good. Some people may take Gomutra and they may say, oh, Gomutra is good. Well, everyone knows Gomutra is good, but how much to take, how to take. To just use an example, I know of an African devotee who came to the Gomutra is good, and he really held the glass right at the place where the Gomutra is being shed by the cow, right? And he had the glass and he had the whole glass there, and he became unconscious immediately. He just fell down unconscious. So, you know, people can do all sorts of such things. So this is, of course, extreme example, but I'm saying always do things as Prabhupada taught us, under guidance. So you can always go back to the person and say, okay, I took this. Can I take more? Can I take less? So this is happening to me. So you have somebody to really guide you. Someone takes care. So they're always on the bottle under the guidance of a registered medical practitioner. That what is always there on the bottle. And we need to take that. We need to take that instruction seriously.
thank you for that. Yeah, I think that's very informative because it's become a booming business now. And what works for your neighbor and what works even for one family member would probably not work for the other. So, anything you would like? I just wanted to mention also because, especially this second wave is also hitting a lot of youngsters and even children. Anything you would like to mention in relation to children, in regards to foods, or even in regards to supplement?
Yeah, this is a little different than the first wave, as you said. That in the first wave we didn't have too much of children, but looks like it has changed its gear and now attacking younger people. We have lost a good number of lives of people who are young. We lost a psychiatrist friend in our own hospital who was only 37. So yes, the young are being attacked. The children also are little targets now. In the first wave, the parents would get fevers and the children were pretty much protected. But this time, the fever is coming even to people who are 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. So I think the same thing applies to them, children, all the more because they may be used to foods which are not necessarily healthy. They may not have cultivated healthy habits so far because they have been grown up in food cultures which cannot be very conducive to their health. And you know they are small, so they really don't know what is good health, bad health, and chocolates, and you know whatever, right? So I think we need to keep a curb on that, and the same principle as adults applies to children also. We won't give them the same doses of supplements as adults, obviously. We will give them in syrup forms. We will have, so there are multivitamin syrups available, vitamin C stuffs available, so they must be on supplements also. This is a good time for getting our children to become a little more health conscious and teach them exercises, right? Because even children nowadays are into books and they're studying and online classes and online tutorials and online, exams. Everything is online, so they're sitting and using their gadgets all the time. So also getting them to understand that yes, and going out and playing, maybe if the situation allows, or playing at home, and just becoming a little more conscious that they have to move their bodies, right? Because most of our children also are gaining weight these days, right? Because of their sedentary lifestyle for the last 1.5 years. How many children, how many people have gained weight? 2 kilos, 4 kilos, 5 kilos. Some of our patients have gained 10 kilos of weight in just 15 months, which is terrible. They can never shed it again all their lives. So teaching them about the healthy habits of exercises will be very useful. Teaching them some simple breathing techniques, pranayam, which we all want to do. So the whole family can sit together. Say, okay, time for exercises. Let everyone come together. Okay. So now you know how to breathe in, right? Hold your breath, breathe out, right? So let them make it more fun based, where children can also start learning. Yes, my parents taught me how to breathe properly. Okay, now we're going to raise our hands and breathe in, breathe out, right? So simple things, which is like a altered bhastrika, what we call, right?
Hmm.
So we can make it fun, and the parents would do a lot of good to themselves and children, and making the whole environment a little more health conscious. This is a good time to really inculcate that samskara of healthiness in the family.
Thank you for that. And while we are just talking about in general, people, are at a risk. Everybody's at a risk. But would you a little bit like to draw our attention to that? Is there any high risk population?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Definitely, there is, like any other disease. There are high risk populations there, and therefore, I think it's important to note that, because these people really, of course, we want to protect ourselves, but even within the protection range, and these high risk people are all the more to be protected. They are categories of people who need additional protection. So I would say number one is our elderly population, right? Of course, as we said, Corona doesn't spare anyone. These doesn't spare anyone. Everyone is at risk, more or less. But the highest one means anybody above 50, 55, right? And of course, when you say senior citizens, 60, definitely even more. Our diabetic population, the whole, there is about 9 to 10% diabetic population in the whole world, right? It's huge. Millions of people are diabetics. If that gentleman and the gentle lady have been poor in their diabetic control, they are very high risk, right? Because diabetes itself is an immunosuppressant disease. So diabetic population, they need to be very strict on their control, your insulins or your drugs which you're taking, your exercises, your food control, etc. So diabetes, those who are obese, even people who are young. See, obesity is a worldwide pandemic, far more than corona, right? Almost one fourth of the world, it is said, is obese. That's how huge this pandemic is. So obese people are in a pro-inflammatory state all the time, all their life, right? So obesity, if your BMI is about 30, right, you are an obese person, very obese person. So be careful. Hypertensives, people with heart disease, those who are on dialysis, those who are cancer patients, even if they had cancer before, they don't have it now, but in general, they are at high risk. And if they're on chemotherapy, radiotherapy, etc., even more. So these populations are definitely more vulnerable. Those who are on immunosuppressive drugs, they had a transplant, they have immunosuppressive drugs or immunomodulating drugs, right? These are the population which need to be even more care, because all these diseases which we mentioned about directly or indirectly impact the immune system. So they are what we call as immunocompromised, and therefore for them even more so the need for care, or maybe vaccinations, medications if necessary. They have to be a little more careful, because their disease will be more severe than their counterparts.
while we are still at talking about preventive care, and you spoke about food, lifestyle. Mm. One very important other preventive measure which has been continuously stressed is gargle and to steam.
Yeah.
Uh, so a lot of people are feeling, oh, we have been doing this for 6 months, 3 months. their sense of fatigue, that you feel I've been all right, it's okay, missed a few days. So how important would you say is this, that you maintain the consistency of this on a daily basis, or if you miss it a few times, is it that your body would be able to handle it? How would you say?
Yeah. So we all know the value of the mask, right? And now we're talking about double mask, but we are also sure that why we wearing the mask, because we want to protect the nose. The nose has become so important in our life. That's the entry gate of the virus. The virus is going to enter not through our ears or mouth or skin. It is going to enter through the gateway of our nose, and for this nose become extremely important to protect all the time. So even though we are wearing the mask, we are at situations, at companies, different times when the mask is lowered down, we are off guard. So be prepared that the virus probably still will get into your nose, right? So when it gets into your nose, it is going to lodge into the nasopharynx, the oropharynx, and then it's going to go down into your lungs. So keeping the vitality, what we call especially in medical science as the surface immunity. The surface immunity contains specific antibodies called as IgA antibodies, right? And there are certain surface cells which are immunogenic in nature, we can identify viruses. So when you do gargling, right, most of the time the virus will take a little bit of hold in the throat, and therefore most of us we have known that the virus initially causes some sore throat, some irritation, some dry cough, etc. Right? So we know that the virus is already sitting over here. So generally taking goggles, there are various types of goggles, but commonly homemade goggles like even hot water with salt and turmeric, or the popular ones is betadine, iodine containing, right? Iodine is antiviral, antibacterial, we know that. So gargling that at least will keep this area more antiseptic in nature, correct? So this is going to be important because you can, and it actually kills. Iodine actually kills. Turmeric actually kills the viruses. It is definitely virucidal, what we call virucidal in nature. So it kills the virus. Now, we are not sure, but before you even started doing that properly, you had some viruses going down, right? Down your trachea and your bronchus into the alveolar passages and sitting there in the lungs, right? So then how do you reach out the virus which has already gone down? You cannot flush it, you cannot, what do you do with that? So then nature God given steam is there, right? When you take steam, right, it's already something which is powerful enough. Like when you hit yourself, right? You have a backache or a sore shoulder or a neck. We apply hot fermentation, right? What does hot fermentation do? It brings more blood into the area, hyperemia. More blood come, and as more blood comes in, all the antibodies, all the cells come in. Similarly, when you put steam, which is altered heat, which is heat, hot water is steam, right? So it comes at temperature of around 40-45 degrees. Steam is at that temperature usually when we take steam in our steam machines. So that when it goes inside, it will draw a lot of fresh blood into the lungs. The lungs are a big target for attack and damage, right? And the more stronger the lungs are, and our lungs are generally not so strong. Why? Because most of us have not been doing deep breathing. We almost always do very shallow breathing, very very shallow breathing. We are not deep breathing, right? And therefore, because we are not deep breathing, the virus gets an advantage. So when you do deep breathing and steaming, then the steam goes right till below, right? And allows the mucus to get cleared, the virus to get inactivated. It will not kill the virus, remember that. It cannot be killed by steam. Steam, it can only kill the virus when it is 56 degrees and not at 40-45. But it will draw more blood into the lung system, whereby all the immune cells will run over there and they can effectively deal with the whole situation. So I would say steam for 10 minutes, at least twice in a day, could be a good ritual to follow. When you're in your washroom, you bring your morning program in the washroom, keep your glass of, take from the geyser hot water, add 5 ml of betadine, gargle, and then come out from the washroom, right? Before in the end, in the night before we go to bed, again, the same thing. Just do that and go to bed. So it is not very time consuming, but it's just that it keeps us conscious that yes, this passage, the naso-oro lung passage has to be kept very, very clean and immunized. What we call a surface immunity has to be created there.
Thank you for that. I think that was so informative because we've been hearing we need to take steam, but I myself didn't know what steam actually did to your lungs. So what you said that it actually draws oxygen to your lungs and it makes them much stronger. So I think I'm really hoping our audiences out there are going to feel much more convinced to do this twice a day and not be lax in this very important ritual, which if compromised can actually lead to making you far more susceptible to the disease. So going from that point that considering somebody has been following these guidelines, there is a good chance that somebody could still contact the virus,
Yeah.
and somebody could be asymptomatic. Now that's a little dangerous space when we have or we are in contact with a lot of people around who could be asymptomatic. So how would you suggest that we safeguard ourselves? First is that how could these people safeguard themselves, because you don't even know probably that you are a carrier and you're spreading this virus to others. So are there usually any still final telltale signs which one can look out for that you could be asymptomatic with something that you can read in which could give you an idea that you could be positive without having a test done? That's one thing. And how do people who are around you, or if you are around other people who could be asymptomatic, how do you safeguard yourself?
You are lucky if you're asymptomatic carrier in one sense, because your immune system is probably keeping the virus under check, right? That the virus is sitting there. So as we talked about, the topic today is coexisting with virus, coexist with COVID. So if you're asymptomatic, that means you already learned to coexist. You are there, the virus is there, both of you are there in the same place, in your throat, in your nose. But the virus not bothering you, and you're not, you're okay with the virus being there. So actually, in one sense, it's a good thing to have. You learn adaptation, and that's most of the time what is necessary, because to not get infected, I really believe is going to be a tall order. At some point of time, and we are going to move out of our houses. We cannot and I mean, as doctors, we've been being out every day for the last 15 months, but most of us go for shopping and buying your groceries and this and that. We all have to move out. We cannot be imprisoned in the house for an indefinite amount of time. So I believe that all of us will get contacted with the virus, right? So if you get infected, it's all right, but you should not get the disease. So there's a difference between getting infected and getting the disease, right? So there are TB germs in your body right now. In my body there are a lot of TB germs, but I'm infected with TB germs because I'm living in a hospital, right? But I don't have the disease. So it's one thing to have infection, that means the virus is there, but you don't have the disease manifestations, right? So these people are not necessarily the worst super spreaders. So you don't have to really worry about that too much, because the virus is in a very subdued state, and therefore, and even if you get a mild cold or a mild cough or a little bit of some feverishness feeling like that, right? Within the next few days, maybe 10, 15 days, you may remain positive. I want to make this point very clear that if I get infected, for example, and if I get a mild symptom of some upper respiratory infection, etc., you may remain positive for a long time. Sometimes 1 month, sometimes 2 months, sometimes even 3 months, and sometimes even beyond. So being positive is not necessarily something that should bother us, because the viral clearance is going to take some time, and that varies from individual. Some people clear the virus in 7 days. They were positive RT-PCR, they're negative in 7 days. Done, finish, khatam, right? But some people remain positive for a long time. But almost 15 days from the point when you become asymptomatic, even if you had to say fever, this or whatever, from time you are symptom free, 15 days, right? Then you are no longer infective to the people in your environment. You are not of any danger to them. You can sort of coexist with your family, you can interact with your family, and they're not going to get it from you or from people around you. So that's something about asymptomatic carriers. Is it okay?
Yeah, that was quite informative. Just in a question before you actually spoke about the mask. And he said the mask is one of the most important things which can protect you. And we see that there is a lot of stress today on double masking. Can you little bit explain that why and how do you correctly double mask?
Yeah. So, already the people are feeling harassed by the one mask. They're feeling life is becoming difficult. But to top it all, now they're saying two masks. I hope they don't say three. I hope it stops at two. Second wave, two masks. Third wave, three masks. I hope it doesn't go on in that direction. But remember, not any mask is good. I just want to make a point that people think that anything you might on the market is like, okay, as long as it is good. So earlier they were feeling that any mask is good enough, but there has to be quality to the mask, right? Because so there are surgical masks which are there. I don't have it here. It's in the other room. The surgical masks, the N95 masks are good. Now they figured it out. You see, scientists are totally activated into research now because this is so much is going on. So they need to produce data to tell us what is most effective. So they figured out that about 75 to 80% protection takes place if you use the N95 mask. They're not the best. Obviously, you're not satisfied. So then they suggested there's a journal called as JAMA, Journal of American Medical Association, which published a recent report a few weeks back that in order to get 95% protection, you need two masks. And so from that day onwards, after this publication came about, I think about a month ago, they said, so then you use two masks, right? So we have a little more of a thin mask, the first one, and you have a little more 995 mask above it. So, but please remember, if you're doing a brisk walk or running exercises, right, do not keep the mask on at that time. There are people I see who are into, as you said, exercise is important. So they're like doing jogging early in the morning at 6 o'clock and they're having this double mask on their face. Dangerous, right? If you are exercising, you just lower down the mask. Not a problem. Not a problem, right? Because you're not going to inhale it at 6 in the morning or, there's nobody around you to throw the virus at you. So you're all alone in your compound or in your, jogger's park or in your walking area, wherever you are. So if you're doing some rigorous exercises, then lower down the mask because your air needs to enter fast. That air exchange has to be very fast in and out. So then you have to keep your mask lowered at that time. But if you're just going for a simple walk, then keep the mask on. Okay, so double mask is just definitely more effective. 95% protection will be there. So this is called as, again, it's called as barrier immunity. You're creating a barrier, right? The surface immunity is being created. A barrier is created. And if the barrier fails, then we talked about steam and other things, so that if the virus does go inside eventually, which it will often will, then you are depending on the surface immunity of your lungs and the immune system of the entire body to effectively deal with the whole situation.
Okay. Thank you for that. I think so now. I think I just hope we feel a little more convinced to where the. So is it that we follow the guidelines given by the government and the doctors? Like you said that right now there's a request for two masks. So till this is till we are told not to do it, we everybody should, you say, continue with the double masking.
Yeah, masking. The double masking would be highly recommended. Definitely very, very recommended. We should definitely do that. See, mask is something we don't want to compromise on. It may be overemphasized to the extent of being boring now. We're talking about it's getting boring, it's getting too much, and as you said, exhaustion sets in and boredom sets in. But definitely, it's something which we just cannot compromise. It's like it's the most basic thing which we have to follow. The most basic thing, because that is your first point of entry. If you can manage to keep, and even if you have the virus going in your body, right? If you had the mask, all the stuff will not go inside. Suppose there are a billion viruses in the environment, and you're breathing in that environment, just contaminated, right? And if you have a mask, we'll end up having only a few million going in, and most 90% virus remaining outside. But if you are open, then the viral load, you're having a huge amount of viruses going on, because when a person coughs, right? Literally, when he coughs, an infected person coughs, he sheds something like more than a billion viruses in the environment. It's a staggering figure, right? It's not just coughing. It's not like, a few 10, 15 viruses floating here and there. It's millions of viruses just exploding out of his system, right? So if you're going to in that environment, you're going to get the whole stuff inside you, you are in big danger. But if you had a mask, and some of it get filtered off, some enters, and that hopefully is, your body is probably prepared for that onslaught, and you can deal with it nicely, right? So mask, even if it fails to give full protection, if you have a single mask, for example, at least will filter out something, right? But mask is crucial, no compromise.
Okay. How much percent of the infection you think would be coming from it being airborne? That if we are like you said that you could be going for your morning walk, you're doing your exercises, you're outside for some time, and personally, I feel a little concerned about this that, what if somebody was in the vicinity and, somebody was sneezing. So, in general, do we need to worry about this? And if yes, to what extent is the infection being airborne affecting us?
See, what does airborne really mean? Airborne really means that the virus is not hanging alone. There are mucous particles from our saliva, from the mucous secretions in our lungs, in our throat, which in which the virus gets embedded, right? So now the virus coming out naked outside. It's wearing the clothes of our mucous lining, and you cough, right? And along with embedded in the mucous line, in the mucous substance, the virus is thrown out. Now it it may be very weightless, but still has a weight, right? So it goes out of the body and can go out. In the first way, they said it can go out to a distance of 20 meters. When you cough, it can go up. 20 meters are like really large, right? So they found viruses. If somebody cough, they found that it can reach up to 20 meters, which is really long, right? But you cannot have distancing of 20 meters. It is impractical, right? But remember, they are hanging in the air for a few minutes. Eventually, because it is having, however weightless it is, but it has still got some weight, so it eventually settles down on a leaf or on the ground, on a surface of something else. It settles down. So even if some infected person walk that area coughing, right, they don't have to remain there for hours together. It will settle down in a few minutes, right? And if you be the guy who's walking around with the mask in the morning at 6 or 7 o'clock, even this airborne disease, it's not that the air is fully infected or charged with viruses all the time. It settles down on surfaces, right? And the surface gets contaminated, of course, but it's not that the air is carrying the virus all the time. That needs to be clarified. Therefore, that's the amount of paranoia of not just getting out of the house because it's airborne. And that's illogical.
Thank
That's
you for
illogical.
clarifying that. That was very relevant to know. Before we move forward, I just want to tell our audiences that we are inviting some questions. If you have any questions, please write to us in the comment section, and we will be happy to take that. And our next question is, now that this was all preventive, and now you have come to the point of being COVID positive, uh, and what would you say that when you get tested, you are positive, what would be the red flags that you need to look out, which set an alarm for you that you need to visit the hospital? This is getting something serious, because you may not initially be having, you may just be at that initial stage having a few symptoms, and we've seen that a lot of cases were, from coming to a point of severity to people actually leaving, even devotees leaving their bodies, could have been much better handled if they were probably in the hospital at the right time. So there is some resistance people feel. One is, of course, because of the healthcare situation, you may not actually be able to find a bed. That's an unfortunate situation. But if such a facility is available, when can you actually know, and what would be your indicator that you need to, just go to the hospital and probably get admitted?
Yeah, I think this is important for all of us to understand. Well, everyone knows that it is an infection, right? So the primary symptom of infection, like any other infection we have gone through, is body pain, what we call as myalgia, restlessness, listlessness, malaise, generally low feeling where the energy levels have gone down, fever, upper respiratory symptoms in the form of cough, rhinorrhea, running of nose, things like that. These are things which are of initial situations, And it is believed that 80% plus people will go through such mild symptoms only, 80% plus, right? But talking about those people who are high risk, right? Those are people who need to be a little more careful. So there are something which we need to take charge of. One is that I would say it is important that most of us possess within ourselves this what is called as a pulse oximeter, because what I'm going to say now is going to be crucial to understand when you need to go take medical attention. Normally, when we put it more on the middle finger, because elderly people will have sometimes variable numbers on the different fingers based on different level of atherosclerosis of their arterial supply to the fingers. But generally, the middle finger will have the maximum good supply. So let's use the middle finger first. Number one. Number two, put the finger inside and you look at the readings. It will give you two readings, pulse and your what we call as oxygen saturation, SpO2, oxygen saturation. How much is blood saturated with oxygen? It's not actually oxygen, but how much is saturation percentage of it. That's what it actually means. So generally we would have a healthy individual would have 97, 98, 99, sometimes even 100. Right? Now, if that is what your base, so you should know your baseline reading. My basal reading is 98. Okay, so I'm happy and good. I'm having fever, but everything is fine. Now, there's something called as a 6-minute walk test. Right? This is one of the earliest signs which we need to really take note of. You start walking at medium pace in your house, in your compound, wherever you are walking with the machine on, with the pulse oximeter on, right? And within 6 minutes, and usually even much before, if your oxygen levels, your SpO2 levels start falling by a number of 5, right? It means you are at 98 to start with, but you became 93 just by walking that distance back and forth, right? Up and down the stair, your passage or whatever, right? If your oxygen level drops to that level, that means that the inflammation in the lungs is significant enough to drop the oxygen supply to that level. It means the inflammation is active, affecting the large lung lobes. And these are people who, when you do a CT scan, you will see a lot of fluffy shadows there, ground glass appearance, etc. And that's a sign that you will now need nothing. You may have taken your vitamins and things like that. Now you need something more. You need antibiotics. You need steroids, right? You need antiviral agents. You need these drugs, and your doctor will do what we call as a blood count, right? So another red flag is that if you're feeling fever and all, just go for a simple what we call a CBC. CBC means a complete blood count. If generally when viral fevers, the blood count falls. So normal WBC count, white cell count is about say 5 to 6,000 per cubic millimeter, right? But if you generally have a fall, 4,500, 4,000, 3,500, 3,000, like that, if you have fall, then you are in a situation where your immune system is weakening up because of the virus, right? So that's important. So that's one sign. Second sign, as I said, is a drop in oxygen levels on walking, the 6-minute walk test. That would need you to go for the next test. Now you go to your doctor and say, sir, do I need a CT scan? Right? And remember, just because you get a fever and because of this COVID time, all fevers are COVID unless put otherwise. More or less, that's how the doctors really deal with it. Right? So if you get a fever, if you go for a CT scan on the very first day, you won't see anything. So don't be in a rush to think the CT scan is what I need right now because my lungs should not get fired. Right? So that paranoia has to be kept aside. Take CT scan on the advice of your medical practitioner, your physician, your family physician, your home care, your usual person who's taking care of your health. Ask them, do I need a CT scan now? Do you really feel my symptoms warrant that? Don't decide on your own, right? Because you may take reading and come to the wrong conclusions. Oh, I'm okay, or I'm not okay, right? So that's why you take a CT scan. So on the CT scan, they will see some shadows. It's called cohort evaluation. And then based on that, the blood count and your oxygen levels, they will advise you, yes, you would now probably need admission, right? Or you probably can manage this at your home. So that decision will be decided by your family care physician. But this is for something for all of you to know that these are things which you should care for. If your fever keeps rising, you start coughing badly. You coughing, or you're talking on your mobile. You're and start wondering, just 5-minute talk, and then you start panting. or going up the stairs in your house to your, whatever, and you're feeling when you're going to go up, so you're feeling a little more unusual. Everyone knows how much level of breathlessness they have when they go up the stairs. But now I'm going up 1 story, 2 stories. The same amount of walking I've been doing every day for the last so many years, but I'm feeling I need more air, right? So these are some signs which indicate that your lungs definitely need to be cared for more. You need some additional investigations which will decide for the admission.
Just the other side of the question is that if we are fortunate enough and we don't have those symptoms what you just mentioned, the oxygen levels and things are much more in control. What would you in brief suggest one can take care of oneself while one is treating oneself at home? That is, if you're home quarantined. Uh,
So as I said, there are maybe let's categorize. You have something like mild, moderate, and severe. So if you are having fever or cough, body pain, etc., mild symptoms, your spirit is not dropping, you are considered as mild, right? So you are in that first category. If you are having this category which I mentioned just now about SpO2 levels dropping and walking, right, and you are increasing coughing and fever, then you're moderate. And of course, if your room air, your oxygen itself is less than 92 at base as baseline, if you're 92 or even less than 90, then you are more like a severe case. So if you're just one of the mild cases, you still need to go to your doctor because you know that now my mild case is there. So you continue your vitamin C, you continue your multivitamins, you continue your your what do you call kada. Kada means that the health drink which you are taking, maybe turmeric drink or ginger drink, continue all those things. But you will now need an antiviral agent, right? If it goes on for a few days and your blood count is dropping, your CBC is dropping, you probably need. So there are various drugs. Maybe I don't get into the detail of all those medical treatment, but let me just mention some of the medicines that are taken. So you may take things like azithromycin, doxycycline, ivermectin, right? These are some common drugs which we have been using in our practice, which have been found to be useful, right? Of course, you take paracetamol as and when required. You continue steam and gargles. We step up the vitamin C to a higher dose. You may be taking one tablet twice a day. You may go for a fuller dose. You may take even 2 tablets thrice a day. It means 3 grams. 500 milligram, 2 plus 2 plus 2. So you step up your multivitamins and you take these drugs I mentioned. If you get admitted, of course, they will probably give you some antiviral drugs. It's called as Fabiflu, Favipiravir medicine is there. Although the antiviral drug, this is completely out of the range of the normal person to decide, right? This is exclusively under medical care and attention because these drugs are powerful. They're supposed to kill the virus, but they also have significant side effects. So we will probably have to hand over the whole charge to the doctor to decide the dosing and everything else like that, right? So there are the antibiotic agents we have to take. You may have to take some steroids. If your SPO levels are dropping, you need steroid because the steroid is a very powerful anti-inflammatory compound, inflammatory drug. And since inflammation is a killer in the whole scenario of COVID, the inflammatory effect of steroid comes to of great help to practitioners. They may give you, if you are mild, they may give you oral tablets of steroids, but if you are admitted, they may give you injectable steroids as well. And so don't get worried about steroid side effects. I'm just mentioning this as a side point here because steroid is something which has earned a bad name. Oh, steroids. Ooh, it's like a horrible word which you don't painkillers, steroids. These are very bad things. No, everything has its utility in this world. Under use and expert guidance, steroids have great value in curbing down the excessive momentum of inflammation, which is going to capture your lungs. It just sort of puts a halt to the whole thing. So steroids, which we have used for the last 15 months, have saved many lives, and therefore, please do not undermine the value of them. Even if you're a diabetic, if you're not a diabetic, people you give steroid to a person not diabetic and his sugar goes high because one of the effects of steroid is to make the sugar go high. Oh my God, am I become a diabetic now? They get scared. Oh, I'm on insulin now. I'm on medicines now. The steroids have caused me. No, the steroids are just here for a while to help you as a good friend. After you go home, you'll be there for a month maybe. And when the steroid goes down, you will come back to normal sugar like previously. Don't worry, right? Just be careful to eat less sweets, less mahaprasadam.
I think that was very, what this point which you made, the fear of steroids. A lot
Yeah.
of people, feel very scared, and I think this is also one of the fears that sometimes somebody is actually not feeling well, and then they try and resist going to the hospital because they feel that, oh, they give me, heavy antibiotics. What if they administer steroids? And you putting yourself at risk. So yes, at least in this given situation, steroids can actually be your friends, and you need to allow the doctors to administer that to you for a month or something, and then work on your body to pick out early toxins of steroids. So
Doctors have understood the value of steroids by their practical experience, right? And therefore they use it very judiciously. It is not indiscriminate, large doses, non-pharmacological doses. No, it's they know exactly at what level to give X and then go to Y and then go to Z. When to step up the steroids, they know exactly how to use it based on severity measurement. And there we have in our system how to assess severity also, which I'm not going to get into that. But we know when is it severe because we have various parameters. So when you shoot higher steroid, lower steroid, but steroids, please do not keep any bias which you may have had based on previous experience because steroids are bad. Everything is good and bad, yes. But if you take for a long, long time, right, it may have some this thing. But here it is just a short term, it's called as pulse therapy. Just hit hard and you come out. Just hit and you come out, right? So you just jolts the virus, subdues it, takes out the inflammation. Because once the inflammation goes out of control, God forbid, we have very difficult times with people who have, lost that, as you said rightly, once they come late to the hospital and their oxygen requirements have gone down high, the spo2 has dropped, then even large dose of steroids sometimes, do not respond. So if you have to hit with steroid, it has to be early enough.
thank you for clarifying that, Roji. And this was in relation to patients who are at home and who are getting administered by doctors, or even if you are in the hospital. While you are a patient or you have a family member, how does one care for the other family members, especially if you have a COVID positive patient at home who is home quarantined? And how do you safeguard the other family members who are there?
Yeah.
Can be elderly or any age group or even a high
See,
age group.
right. So you have lived together all this while, and now one member has turned COVID, right? So you still live in the same house, but you separate out from each other, right? You create a distancing where the core member stays in one room and everyone else stays in a separate room, right? And you are at risk. You means the family, this was a family of four, and the father is infected, for example, right? The three members of the family are at risk and they have to monitor their symptoms for the next 15 days. 15 days is a time which is allocated for monitoring whether they become symptomatic or not, right? So if you don't get symptoms in 15 days, even after your father was detected positive, had started getting symptoms of the virus, then probably you are, in a asymptomatic state. The most likely thing which is going to happen is that some people in the family may also get a little bit of mild fever because usually it starts with one member. And since this is a very contagious disease, other people get affected also, right? So what do you do? If you're coming to the same room, then again sit at a distance, right? Suppose you're coming for prasadam, right? Best is not to eat prasadam at the same time. If you're four members, eat at different times because you're going to sit together, right? And if you're sitting together at all, then you sit at a good distance. One person here, another person there, right? Because during the eating, you have obviously to lower your mask, correct? So if you eat at different times, you do steaming 3 times in a day, gargle 3 times in a day, step up your vitamins, start taking other drugs as per the fever, as per is necessary. Maybe the fever is there, you may need antibiotics, right? You may need azithromycin, you may need doxycycline, right? You may need ivermectin. These are all drugs which are tested and used all over the world, and we found it is in over here, we found it quite useful. So you may need, if the moment you start getting symptoms, you may have to take some of these drugs as well, right? Important to remember is that take proper hydration and rest, right? So if there's a one member in the family, then obviously everyone is worked up, but take adequate rest because Exhaustion creates the upper hand for the virus. If you get exhausted in the body, immunity drops. So take more rest than normal. If your body asks for it, don't bother about, oh, I'm feeling lazy, it's all tamaguna. It's not tamaguna, it's your body needs it, give it, right? And step up your water intake. I think I want to make this point over here. Water is something the most neglected thing many times. Hydration itself is anti-inflammatory in nature, right? A much of inflammation of the body can be quenched simply by taking good amount of water. So go anything beyond 2 liters per day, right? So take enough hydration, take rest, step up your vitamins, take these compounds that as I told necessary, and keep very good social distancing and only at small times when you have to interact. But otherwise, by and large, keep the infected person in his room where he stays for 15 days, sort of locked up. And But don't become emotionally disconnected. We are talking about only physical disconnection, or but remain emotionally connected with each other. And I think that's important, because that others people feel I'm emotionally unconnected with my family now, and they feel very sore about it. But no, remain emotionally connected and make everyone feel comfortable. Yes, things will be all right, things will be good, right? You're doing the right thing the right way, the right advice, and things will come around. So, and don't panic. If somebody is don't panic. And one thing you don't do, please, among said do's and don'ts. So we talked about do's and don'ts. Don't watch the television. Don't watch the news, right? Because that's going to put a sort of pressure. Because one person is already having fever and is sitting in the room there on the locked up in that room, and then you hear this. Oh, this happened here in Karnataka, in New Zealand, in Japan, or in Africa, or Australia, or in Rajasthan, whatever. You hear all these news of different places. You feel, my God, is my loved one going to die, right? So please remember, corona positivity is not equal to death, right? There is absolutely no room for that. And I tell you as a doctor, please, and I'm not exaggerating, but we have seen hundreds of patients by now, and we've treated literally hundreds of patients, right? Mortality is not the major concern, right? People don't, it is not equivalent to, the mortality is still quite small as compared to heart attacks, or like people say, if walking on the road, the chance of getting a road accident is much higher, or that people are driving the trains. I mean, people are talking about Mumbai now. I'm a Bombayite, right? So people are driving the trains. The risk of falling off from the trains, crowded trains, is much larger, right? Or and things like that. So the normal risk to life itself is so high. So do not think that this, corona is equal to death. It is definitely not equal to death, right? Most patients, 97%, 98% people actually, 80% remain on the asymptomatic or very, very low. Few people have mild, maybe 15, 20%, right? And just mortality is still very, very low. But again, that mortality can be brought to a significantly even further lower level by all the care we're talking about, and of course by vaccination. I think we'll talk about vaccination in a few minutes.
Thank you so much for reassuring us with that question, because I think everybody is thinking this is the number one reason for death. People are dying, but yeah, I think that clarification was so important, especially in India today with the deadly second wave. A lot of people watching media, reading news, and also hearing from your extended family, the fear factor levels have gone so high. And considering this aspect, and just what you even spoke about, staying emotionally connected, I really wanted to bring this question, which is relevant, because this is the Mental Health Wellness Week. That's what the world is celebrating today and during this week. And besides a lot of what we spoke about now, which was largely in relation to the symptoms, where you talked about the virus coming in through your nose, your lungs getting affected, feeling the symptoms, diabetes. But what's happening at the level of the mind, and the turbulence which is happening at an emotional level, is having a far-reaching impact on our population. And irrespective of all age groups, we see that people are feeling a great sense of isolation. People are feeling depressed, disconnected. Their morals are going down, especially because of the lockdown. And a lot of people are actually not very sure if they will be able to come back to a normal life. There's such a confusion between the new normal. Will there be a normal as it was before? And of course, this, when you have a family member who has passed away, so there is the grief management, there is the illness management, there is the prevention management. So there's a lot happening for an individual at the level of mind and emotions. Could you a little bit talk to us and shed light on this aspect, that how do we take care of ourselves from a mental, emotional, and psychological point of view, and how important this is?
And this is this is so crucial. In fact, in the first wave when we had this hit, in India, then from our hospital, Prabhupada's hospital, Bhaktivedanta hospital, uh, we gave us a lot of videos on that subject, and I invited the head of department of psychiatry in our hospital here, Dr. Devendra Save, and we had a a wonderful interview on. I was speaking from a physician's perspective because I'm a physician, and he was speaking from as a psychiatrist because he deals with mental health. And actually, we came up with a video which was very well received by the medical fraternity, right? Talking about how to have an integrated approach whereby taking care of the psychological, the impact, its repercussions, and how to really deal with that. And so he mentioned over there. Maybe you can share the link a little later for people, for audience to see if they are interested.
Oh yeah, I think we have that link. Maybe we can show it on the screen. I'll just try to, we can arrange that.
Yeah.
Just give me that. Yeah, I think while you're speaking, we'll just
Yeah,
have
yeah,
that.
yeah. So I encourage devotees, dear friends, to just spend some time. It's about just a small 18-minute video. We discuss about 7, 8 questions there, but it may give you some insight into mental health. I may not be able to speak everything which I need to speak about this in this limited time we have together. But he was mentioning something very crucial. He was saying that the mind, is a thing in itself, right? And therefore, he was explaining that how if somebody what is thinking is basically you're talking to your own self, right? If somebody tells you I will get corona, you say no, I'm taking good care, I'm wearing my mask, I'm doing my precaution. But when your mind says something to you, it is unfiltered. The mind accepts it as a reality. I'm going to get corona, right? So if somebody says you get corona, you said I'll protect myself. But the mind says I'll get corona, you believe it is going to be true. I'm going to get corona infection, right? Because it comes in as an unfiltered impact on the psychic body, the psychic mind. And therefore, you're saying that the mind goes through various emotional situations. And one thing which happens during this troubled times, because of all the impact is there, is a phenomenon called as catastrophization. Another is called as paranoia, right? So catastrophization means that you start feeling that now the worst will happen. Now that I have the virus, I am in for the worst case scenario. That is the mental phenomenon we're going to do. And so that's not true. That's really not true. People started migrating from Mumbai. You must have seen pictures. People just migrating from wherever they were and walking back to their villages, even it was several hundred kilometers away, or taking a cycle, or just running off from the cities and going to their own hometowns. Think that something horrible is going to happen over here. It wasn't necessary. It was just too much of scare. Feeling that this is going to be a death place now, and it's going to be horrible over here. So being uninformed, this is the time to be informed, right? We need to keep our vigilance intact, but not allow it to go to the level of becoming overly confused and going to the level of paranoia, right? So there has to be a significant balance over there. And then to use the time which we have, right, to really do things which we want to do. I mean, we are Krishna's devotees, right? We are Prabhupada's followers, right? So we have a lockdown situation. So maybe it's a time when we are not able to do all the things we wanted to do, but to keep ourselves away from the negativity of the environment. We talk about that all the time. You meet somebody, talk about that all the time, right? But For this, you need two things. One is elimination, other is fortification. Elimination means that you do things to eliminate that negativity which is affecting you. And as I said before, stop seeing the news and the WhatsApp messages on COVID completely. Just stop it. Absolutely, right? Whether there are 1 lakh positive cases or 2 lakh positive cases or 5 lakh positive cases per day in Mumbai and Maharashtra, and what does it really matter? It actually doesn't really matter because they're all numbers. We just know it's all over the place, and these figures keep changing. Right? As long as I'm my family and my loved ones are taken care of, that's my world. That's my universe practically many times, right? So I don't want to just get impacted because I don't have the psychic power to really handle that huge amount of stress. So I'm allowing that to impact me. So I do elimination. Second is fortification. Start doing things which make you really feel happy, which maybe make you feel worthwhile, right? And some people have gone into, my friend was talking in the interview, you will hear, he says that I started cooking. He's a psychiatrist, but he said, I started cooking with my wife and I started making chapatis, rolling chapati, I learned cooking, right? Some ladies have scaled up their skills in cooking. Some people have gone into various hobbies. Some people have, been reading more books. I mean, sometimes don't we complain that we don't have time to read Prabhupada's books? I mean, I think all of us as Grihasthas who are here may think that I don't have enough time to read Srila Prabhupada's books, right? And then a whole lot, all of us have a library of books in our house of BBT, by Prabhupada, on Prabhupada, right? But it's a time when actually we can open the books which we wanted to read for so many years, right? So I've been taking out time for that, even though hospital keeps us significantly busy. But we keep on reading Prabhupada's books and books by Prabhupada's disciples on his divine grace, Transcendental Diary. Then the recent one which is given by Giriraj Maharaj on Let There Be a Temple, right? And he just brought out recently the Rhinoceros book, Chasing Rhino with the Swami by Shamsa Prabhu, and books like that, which really actually align the consciousness. I think we need to we need to know that it is not the end of the world, first of all. It is not the end of the world. It is not Pralaya, right? And even though there are, like Indra was sending all hailstorms and thunderbolts, and the Brijbasis, as long as the Brijbasis knew what to do, they just knew that they had to go to Krishna, right, and stand under that umbrella of Govardhan Hill. And all things were happening around them, but they were in a blissful state, right? So on one hand, they eliminated the situation by going under the Govardhan, and second is they fortified their attachment to Krishna by being with him and talking to him and hearing his flute and all that, right? So by elimination and fortification of doing things which we want to do, watching dramas, videos, Avacharan serial, reading the books, Ramayana, etc., right? Chanting a few more rounds. Some people have increased their standard of deity worship in their own homes. The deities are getting more offerings than before. They're getting dressed more frequently than before, right? And things like that. Some devotees have started giving out programs. People are attending more programs. Some people are doing Bhakti Shastri. So in this way, devotees actually are so intelligent. Honestly, they're so intelligent that they know that this is the time to actually psychologically take shelter of Krishna, and therefore they are to diffuse off the impact on the mind, which is creating a lot of negativity. So we need to use this as an opportunity to not get overwhelmed, but really sort of do it in a way where we can come out even more stronger than before, emotionally, spiritually, etc.
Yeah, thank you for reminding us for that. That every challenge is an opportunity for a devotee, and yeah, so much time and so much opportunity to do everything that you wanted to do. So considering that we are now 1 hour and 15 minutes into our interview, so I thought we also have some questions from our viewers, and we'll just take some messages and also some questions. But before I move forward, I just wanted to share that we have shared the link of the video which Prabhuji was mentioning in relation to mental health on our Facebook and our YouTube channel on the comment section. So you can please check it and please have a look at it. So yeah, here it is, the video. This is a link here. You can see it on the screen. So yeah, please check it. And at your convenience later on, you can see this video. I'm here taking some questions. This is a question from Kaushik Agarwal from YouTube. Kaushik has this question in relation to the vaccine. Can you please tell which vaccine is better? Because we are very confused whether to take or not. So I think there's a confusion whether to take vaccine or not, and if one is, is forced to take vaccine, or if you suggest it's good to take vaccine, which one to take.
It is an unfortunate situation that something just come by out of the Lord's grace, uh, as a help, uh, as a shelter, as a protection in the form of a vaccine. This is the Lord's help. He's sending his children to be protected from this dangerous virus. But because of the bad promotion and the overly and exaggerated side effects which may be there in just a few small number of people, that people become so scared and even considering I should not take it. Right now, now I am speaking from the medical perspective. People may have their own independence, of course, to decide what they want to do. But we doctor as a community would definitely recommend that everyone should get vaccinated, because this is something which is very, very important. As I said before, the immune system is not fortified to take care of it, and you have to create adaptive immunity in the way by taking this vaccine. The crucial question now is which one, right? When we didn't have a vaccine, if you had only one, everybody would probably jump for it. But now you have two, and then you have now your Sputnik coming in. So people are thinking, should I take Sputnik? So then they're getting in confused what to take, what not to take. Well, I would say, and I'm being a little more practical. There are all figures are given, and all of you are aware of the figures: 78%, 83%, 97.6%. Right. So I think all of you know about the figures. I'm not going to get into all that, but I'm just saying that take whatever is available, easily available, right? Whatever is available. I'm just being a little more practical, honestly, right? Just take what is available, because all of them are at least giving a protection beyond 70%, right? And nothing in the world is going to be perfect. I don't think we need to think that vaccine is like the panacea cure for the complete malady of the pandemic. It is not. If you're putting so much of emphasis only on one thing, that a vaccine will make me sort of immortal against this virus, maybe you're looking at it in the wrong way, because that will minimize the importance of all that we said before, which we all know very well we must do. So if you're getting Covishield, take Covishield. If you're taking, like for example, when as health workers, we were offered Covishield, and we knew the numbers, Covaxin versus this and that. It's what is available, give it to us, right? And so as for myself, I took Covishield, two vaccines. At the early time, they were saying take it 1 month apart. Now they're saying they take it 2 months apart. Okay, so whatever the guidelines may be, but take whatever is available, and do not get so much worried about the side effects. They are really, really quite small. In related to vaccine, I would say a few things which will help to minimize side effects. This may not be known too well. The day you take your vaccine, take 2 glasses of water before you go to the vaccination center, right? Sit there for half an hour. They will check you out whether everything is all right with you. If you have no symptoms, no giddiness, nothing, everything looks okay, you come back home, take 2 glasses of water again. For the next 5 to 7 days, take a lot of water. People who got the small number, I'm going to mention again the small number of people who did get stroke or a myocardial infarct, right, were most likely people who were actually dehydrated. Dehydration causes increased viscosity of the blood, and therefore, after a vaccine, when the immune system gets activated, there is an inflammatory response to the baseline viscosity of the blood, and that leads to microthrombi formation. Therefore, hydration is a very good way of actually creating a situation whereby the inflammation comes down. So hydrate yourself for 5, 7 days. Take more rest. You may find a little drop or dip in your energy levels. So don't strain, don't struggle to do like your routine work. I must do this much for the day, right? Just tone down and say, okay, I'm going to take it easy. My body is fighting now, creating some new antibodies. So take adequate rest for the 5, 7 days when you will feel low. So good hydration, take rest. Do not eat any synthetic food for those times. No synthetic food at all, because remember, every synthetic mall-made food, preservative food is potentially thrombogenic, because it may contain trans fatty acids, it may contain chemicals which are maybe which may inflame, which may incite the inflammatory response in the body. So you can never be sure about these packaged foods at all, right? That's sometimes could be outright dangerous. So avoid all packaged food completely, right? Eat only pure homemade food. Take bath 2 to 3 times in a day to keep your body more cool, right? More cool, right? Because vaccine will develop some heat in the body. It will come up in the form of fever. There is no need of taking paracetamol in a preventive level. People say, I get a fever, I want to just suppress it, I'll take a paracetamol just before a fever comes in. Don't do that, right? Because the fever actually is a sign of the activation of the immune system. So if you are too much bothered by body pain or fever, take it. If you can handle 99-degree fever or whatever else, where fever is there, don't worry. It is not the fear of infection. It is not that because with the vaccine, now I'm infected, I'm getting a fever. It is not an infective fever, it's a non-infective fever which is coming up because of the activation of the immune cells, which produce some amount of chemicals which can lead to alteration in the hypothalamus and causes an amount of fever. But it's not infective fever, so don't get worried about the fever. It comes in also perfectly all right. So just some of these care which are necessary. Take a little more adequate rest, take water, avoid outside food, and thus you'll be able to minimize to a significant extent, to minimal extent, the side effects which are promoted so strongly sometimes. So he died and they had a stroke. This does happen. Not that it doesn't happen, but the numbers are very, very small. If you do what I just said, even that can be completely eliminated.
Thank you for that. I think that was very informative, and I think even I was really not aware that it's so important to do simple things like drinking water, taking adequate rest, and just allow your body to, build that, your immune system to help and support the vaccination. So, besides this question with vaccination, we have one more question which is connected, which says that, which is from Mandira, and she's asking, after the vaccination, are you completely safe?
You know, the only safe place is Krishna's lotus feet, I guess. There's no other safe place in the world. But on a more, to answer the question more practically, as you said, there are percentages. There is percentage. What we're talking about basically is that these vaccines do not prevent infection. These vaccines do not prevent infection. If I'm a vaccine, if I'm lowered my mask and I'm walking out in a crowded train or in a crowded road in maybe a downtown place in Mumbai like Kalba Devi or whatever else, right? I'm going to get infected. I'm going to get massively infected with everything else, right? What it means that you will get infected if at all if you do the wrong things. But hopefully, if you're doing the right things, which we have talked about and which all of us already know, and you're vaccinated, then the intensity of the disease is much less. Your immunity starts rising after the first one. After 3 weeks of the first vaccine, your immune cells actually start getting formed, right? But if you take your 6 weeks next dose, 6 to 8 weeks next dose, it's called as a booster dose, you come to optimal levels of formation antibodies, which will last for the next few months, right? So in that time, we have seen that people who are vaccinated at least twice, very few people actually had serious complications. Most of the time, what we have seen so far is that those are double vaccinated, the disease level is at a much lower level of intensity. So we're talking about mortality prevention, we're talking about morbidity prevention, we're not talking about infection prevention with the vaccine.
Also, it's important to keep your guards on. That's also important.
So then, even if you take Sputnik, which is maybe coming next month, with the Sputnik vaccine, which is like getting the biggest hype now, if you get a Sputnik also, please do not.
Yes.
There's no guarantee. You have to do whatever is being told must be done.
We have one more question from Anand. Anand is asking, how long antibodies are there after the infection subsides?
After getting an infection, the body starts manufacturing antibodies as a response to the virus, right? Now, on an average, it is believed. Now, this is a little a gray area, honestly speaking, and we don't have clear-cut, research papers coming out on that. But it is believed that at least 6 months. In the 6 months, you'll have the antibodies. And I say at least means could be 7 months, 8 months, 9 months, whatever. But at least 6 months of antibodies. And they are important because the case of reinfection has been very, very small. If I get an infection now, then the reinfection is small. It happens because now the virus is mutating, right? As we all know, it's mutating. The structure is changing, and there are several dozens of mutating virus in the environment, right? And therefore, you make a reinfection may take place, but by and large, what we're talking about is that the immunity will be there for about 6 months at least. So we are happy about that. But exactly how long the immunity remains, the antibody levels required as a threshold and beyond which are useful, those studies are not known. How long antibody lasts in the body and what level actually is truly protective and what is not protective is yet to be deciphered out through scientific studies, and that is going to take some time. But yes, 6 months is usually a safe period to believe that you won't get infected in the next 6 months.
Thank you for that. We have another question, which is from Gauri Shankar Sundaram. And he's asking that what if a person was infected with COVID when to take the vaccine?
Prior to taking the, say it again.
He's saying, what about if a person was infected with COVID when to take the vaccine?
Oh yeah, this is a good important question, because I think by now many of us who are sitting here and watching this program must have been badly infected in a mild or moderate way, right? So our advice is this is what we do at Bhaktivedanta. We are advising people to do that wait for a period of at least 2 months, because it will take 2 months before the body again comes to a baseline situation. As we sometimes say, like the coal is there, the coal is burning, right? Active infection. But now the fire is gone, but the coal is still hot, right? It'll take about 2 months to come to baseline. The immune system again has to sort of settle down. That has gone through a lot of upheaval during those times of infection. So you allow it to come down to baseline before I'm going to reactivate that immune system with the virus, with the vaccine. So give a period of 2 months from the point of time you started recovering, and then you can take your first dose.
Thank you for that. We are having a lot of questions, and we are almost 1.5 hours into our session. So,
It
uh,
can go on indefinitely long sometimes.
yeah, no, we'll take, because I think this is so important, and this was actually the reason why we are having this session, to actually, address the concerns of devotees, and we want to actually help to give out this right information. So, we have one more question here, where he's asking that, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, can a person who has recovered from mild COVID could have subsequent COVID infection which is severe?
I think I already answered that. The chance of reinfection is small. It is not impossible, but uh, by and large, the first infection would have created antibodies, and within a 6 months period at least, your chance of getting a reinfection is small. And hopefully, in that 6 month period, you would have probably already been vaccinated, and you're doing things better than you did before the infection. You're probably taking better care of your health. You're doing your exercise and pranayam. You're taking your morning walks. You're doing your eating your food better. So after one is infected, I think we all are a little more activated in taking care of ourselves. So the chance of reinfection really should be brought to the bare minimum, because we just know now that where we went wrong and we did the wrong thing, and we want to just you know upgrade our level of healthcare, and therefore we can be more confident that yes, we can keep the second infection. However, the virus mutates, we will also keep doing mutating ourselves to the high level of healthcare, and just keep that whole thing at bay.
Thank you for that. We have this question coming from Tarun Kapoor. Tarun Kapoor is asking, can people get COVID positive even by staying at home, as their neighbors in upper or lower floors or next door are positive?
It may happen because uh, if you just not going out of the house at all, then the chances are very, very small, right? So this is a probably exaggerated fear which is there. The next door neighbor is having corona, so I will get corona. Unless he stands out of this window and coughs on the side of your window because he doesn't love you. That doesn't happen, right? So if he's coughing in his house and a whisk of wind comes from his house into my house and carries the virus, Yeah, that's a small possibility. I'm not making it nil and zero, right? Just because somebody is having corona in the next this thing. If you're using the lift, you're going out of the going to the house, you're going down the staircase, using the lift handles and touching everything which he also has touched, right? That is something which may be a contamination. But otherwise, just somebody next door and you will get it. Uh, I don't think we need to get worried about that too much. It's it's, it's not a worrisome situation.
Okay.
It's
Thank
just
you.
more psychologically impactful that somebody next door is having corona. So it's more psychologically infected rather than physically infected.
I think maybe we can infect them by doing some kirtan at home. Everybody at home can, we are devotees, do some kirtan and infect them with some kirtan and Krishna consciousness. That is just a little, just a lighter moment on that. We have another question from Nayan Patil. Nayan Patil is asking something important, which was actually in my list, but I wanted to take this from the questions. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, can you please share some information about black fungus and its symptoms and precautions? I think he is talking about there have been since the last week quite a few cases, especially in India, relating to black fungus. So I think it would be nice if you could little bit throw some light on this.
The black fungus is a type of fungus called as mucormycosis. And yes, there have been cases in Gujarat and other places where this fungus, again, it stays in our nose, right? And from our nasal cavities, it can penetrate inside and go into the any part of our face. It can go into the eyes, it can go into the brain. It's called as mucormycosis. And that happens to people who are, especially diabetics, elderly people, and as we said before, the high risk category, the immunocompromised hosts, and they are more likely. And when steroids have been used in large doses and not adequately controlled during their stay in the hospital, because during the stay in hospital when the steroids are given, sugar goes high, and they have to be adequately controlled by good physicians or by diabetologists to give them oral drugs and insulin to keep the sugar in check, right? When that is kept in check, the possibility of having this fungal infection is very, very low. But steroids have been used in larger than necessary doses. Sugars are not being controlled during hospital stay, especially they've been not being controlled after going home, because you don't have a glucometer in your house and you don't know how much is your sugar levels and eating food which are not proper. Then during that time, so basically it means that keep your sugars in check, because as you know, fungus thrives on sugar. The moment you put a food outside, in the open, what comes in is you put the bread outside, what comes in is fungus, right? Black fungus you must have seen on bread, right? That's the same fungus which goes into our in our body as well. So even when you're infected, if you take your steams, if you take your inhalations, right, and if you're taking steroids, you can keep the passage still clean and therefore keeps the fungus aside. And some doctors will, of course, sometimes use antifungal agents during the hospital stay also to keep the fungus away. But that's for the medical doctors to decide. But if you do these things and take care of your sugars, especially when taking high steroids, keep your sugar under check, take your insulins, take your drugs properly, and therefore you won't get mucormycosis.
For that.
So, how many questions do we have?
We are taking our last question now.
Okay.
And we have a lot, but we're just taking last one. And our last one is from Shriram. Shriram is asking, does wearing mask for long time decrease oxygen level?
No, just oxygen, just mask alone. Mask is a thin membrane, right? And it is not going to. It is more a barrier for it's a filter for dust and viruses and bacteria. It is not a barrier for oxygen so much, right? So don't worry about that. But as I said before, if you're doing exercises properly, your breathing efficacy itself is so strong that a membrane of mask will not really compromise the oxygenation in your body, not to any significant degree at all. So do not have that fear about oxygen levels going down. You can keep it on. Keep it on.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, definitely. And now, finally, I wanted to take this question, which is I'm sure a lot of devotees have this question, many who are probably on this forum, including myself. We have this question for you that you have been a COVID warrior since the last more than 1 year, and probably must have seen thousands of patients at Bhaktivedanta Hospital fighting for COVID, infected with COVID, or in relation to COVID prevention. And as a service to the devotee community, you have also been taking necessary precautions as much as other devotees at the Bhaktivedanta Hospital. Can you a little bit share with us about how do you keep yourself safe?
I get myself said.
You
I
actually
did
did.
most of I did most of the things I've been talking about. So I'm not just saying theoretically. I try to lead a more regulated life. I try to sleep in time, take hours good 7 hours sleep, and chant my rounds in the morning. Perform about 15-20 minutes of good exercise every day. Go for long. I walk whenever possible outside. But now otherwise I walk in my house, and I keep my consciousness a little more fortified into positivity, because when I come to the hospital, I have to deal with people who are negatively infected and things like that. So I keep myself fortified by trying to chant good rounds and read Srila Prabhupada's books. I read Journey Home, I read Srimad Bhagavatam, I read uh, Translated Diary. So these books, which are one of some of my favorites, I keep them so that I keep my consciousness, absolutely as clear as possible. Because that positivity is important, because I have to interact with people, counsel them, talk to them, so that I must develop that spiritual energy, that shakti to take care of that. So I do that very much. I try to get myself a little jolly and not get involved with all unnecessary politics or what's happening in the whole world. He said this and she that. The WHO general said that, and Fauci said that, and whatever people have to say. I do my duty. I stick to my duty and take care of my family and take care of my patients and my loved ones and my hospital staff. I do whatever is necessary for them, and that helping people itself is actually a very invigorating thing for me. Right, the fact that we are able to help people in this times of need is very fulfilling as far as my professional side is concerned. That gives me a sense of worthiness. That gives me a sense of deep fulfillment and satisfaction that by Krishna's grace, I'm in a profession which really truly is being a small help, as I said before, being a part of the solution rather than being part of the problem. So that's what I do. I try to wear my mask. I wear my PPE kit when I go to the hospital, and I take my steam, I take my vitamins, and more than anything else, they shout out the holy name, because Bhaja Hori Mana Sri Nandanandana Abhayachana Ravindare. The final shelter, of course, is the Lord, and therefore we never want to forget that we're doing all these things so that we can keep ourselves consciousness peaceful enough so that we can pursue our bhakti in a more peaceful and happy state of mind. And I try to do that to the best of my capacity.
We are so grateful to you, Prabhuji, just for your example, such a positive example as a devotee and as a doctor, spreading so much positivity and actually changing and safeguarding lives across the world, and of course, definitely at the hospital where you are, giving first-hand care and help. And we so much want to express our gratitude because as you read that our members actually saying that this is one of the best presentations that they've had in relation to COVID. We have had quite a few sessions on our channel, on the SPT channel, to create more awareness. We're still having more questions coming, and maybe we should have another session with you in the future. We just hope we can have more positive sessions. We hope we don't have other wave coming up for a lot of devotees feeling a lot of anxiety that probably there's a third wave coming, the peak of the second wave is here, and all that. So we just want to request that, as Dwarkadhish Prabhu said, that he is a COVID warrior who is out there, safeguarding devotees, and he has also shown by his example how we can safeguard ourselves. So I would request all devotees to actually take his example of, how to stay positive and, how to fight all the challenges which are coming with a lot of positive which we have, which is given, uh, which we are so fortunate to receive in form of our shastras, in form of so much digital content, positive digital content, which we have available by lectures, by Srimad Bhagavatam, Kirtans. So please take this opportunity and stay positive. I also want to express my gratitude to all the viewers. We've had a lot of devotees coming in on Facebook and YouTube joining the session. Thank you so much. I also want to extend my thank you to Shakshi Gopal Prabhu, who is providing the back-end tech support for this program. And I would like to just share that the link for this particular interview is going to be on the SPT YouTube and the Facebook channel. And if you liked this and if you thought this was worthy, maybe you can share it with your friends so that they can benefit too. And with that, I would like to close with saying that please stay safe and please follow all the guidelines that you need to do to safeguard yourself, because all you devotees out there are precious to all of us. Thank you very much.
And
Thank you.
as Prabhupada used to always tell us, the last and beautiful line Prabhupada taught us is chant Hare Krishna and be
Yeah.
happy.
Hare Krishna. That's wonderful.
Hare
Yes.
Krishna.
Please chant and be happy and stay safe. Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol.
Hare Bol. Hare Krishna.